right, so we are starting first with the apron. And what I want you to do is go ahead and open up your instructions to page 5. We are going to be using the 5x7 design today. You also have a 6x10 design if you'd like to make it larger a little bit later, right? So the first thing I want you to do is get out your 5x7 hoop and hoop your wash away sticky back stabilizer. This is a Kimberbell product that we absolutely love, and it has a paper side to it. So when you go to hoop this, it's actually going to be with the paper side facing up, but you need to score around the outside edge. So I'm just going to take some scissors and lightly slide it around the perimeter, inside perimeter of, there we go, of the hoop. And then you just peel it back. Okay. There we go. Once you've done that, it allows that sticky area to show. And as you can tell, my hand sticks to it. Now, the very first thing you're going to do on your machine is actually bring up what we call the crosshairs file. A crosshair is like, it's going to look like a plus sign, okay? And that's going to give your vertical and horizontal crosshairs stitched directly onto the stabilizer itself. So let's go ahead. I've pulled that up on my machine, and we will stitch that out. This can be any color. It really doesn't matter. It's not going to be shown. But this is going to help us with our hooping of the apron blank, okay? While that's stitching out, I'll go ahead and open up the blank itself. So that has now been stitched out, and I'm going to just set it aside while I prepare the apron blank. Let's go ahead and open up this blank here. Don't you love that pinstripe? This is perfect for really any time of the year. Okay. All right, so right now I'm looking at instruction step number 6. This is at the bottom of page 5, and it says to fold your apron in half lengthwise with the right sides together and aligning the edges. So I'm just going to fold it over in half. Ooh. There's a lot of fabric here. All right, so I've done that. And I'm just going to finger press it right along here, okay? And this is what we would consider fold A, okay? All right. Now, it says that you can also roll up and pin the neck strap. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now as well because you don't want it to get in the way of your stitching. Okay, so we're just gonna take care of that right now and just pin it together. You could also take like a piece of paper tape and just wrap it around the edge there. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. There we go. Then for sure it's not going to go anywhere, right? All right, I'm not even going to worry about that pin. There we go. There's a little tip for you. Okay, so like I said, once that's done, this is considered fold A. And what you're going to do is measure from the very top down 6 inches, okay, from the very top, and then place a pin in it horizontally. So let's go ahead and take our ruler here. And measure 6 inches and place a pin in that. All right, easy enough. So this right now is, again, fold A, but this, where the pin is, I'm going to fold it right along there so it's creased right across. This becomes what I would consider fold B. Again, just finger pressing it, I'm going to be able to see where those crosshairs are. All right, and then take the pin out. All right, now this is where you're going to bring your hoop back. We've already done our crosshairs, right? And remember, if we're saying that this is fold A and this is fold B, I want you to align the folded edge A with the horizontal crosshairs and B with the vertical crosshairs. So just as shown in step 9, that means you're going to be turning this just a little bit to be in this lower quadrant. All right, so once again, A is aligned with the horizontal crosshairs, where B is with the vertical crosshairs. Once you've done that, just go ahead and unfold. And this is why we love sticky back stabilizer, is because notice I didn't have to hoop this whole apron. I'm just floating it right there on top. And now I can undo it this way. All right. And just keep it stuck down. All right. Easy, easy, easy. Okay, so now you've got this extra fabric hanging off the side here, and just to kind of tame it a little bit, we're just going to roll up the extra excess. That's going to just make it nice so that when we go to put this onto the machine, it's not flowing over it and getting in our way. So I'm just going to roll it up. As you see there in step 11, it says that you could pin it or you could clip it. And I actually prefer using a type of clip like this, and then I don't have to have like pin marks in my apron. So I'm just going to clip it real quick, and then we can put it onto the bed of our machine. All right, so this is ready to go. I'm going to place this onto the machine where we will do our first stitch, which is the tail of the pig. So you want to make sure that you have black thread, in this case, in your machine, and then we'll go from there. Be careful when you're loading this on your machine. You've got lots of stuff going on. So you've got, you know, your apron ties, and then of course you've got your extra bulk over here. So just be really careful when you're putting this on that you don't, you don't sew over 2 layers of anything, right? You want to keep it all nice and flat. All right, so there we go. I did have the crosshairs design in first, so now I'm going to actually load the 5x7 pig design. Okay, right there. And as I mentioned, the first step is to stitch the tail. Okay, once that tail has been stitched out, it's time to stitch the outline of the pig so that you know where to place your leather. So you can keep your black thread in while we do that next step. All right. I can see it's going to be cute already. There is the outline of our pig. Now you're going to notice there's a couple things in your kit for this particular project. You've got a piece of black leather, and then you've got what we call our water-soluble wash-away topping. You're going to be using both right now, and I'll tell you why and how. So the first thing you want to do is lay your black leather with the leather side facing up and place it over the entire pig. Okay, just like that. And then anytime we put down an applique piece of fabric, we actually like to use a little bit of Kimberbell paper tape just to make sure that that doesn't move when we go to put it back on our machine and everything stays in place. So that was step 4 in your instructions. Step 5 actually has you place the wash away topping. Now, why do we use this? Well, anytime you're using or you're stitching onto something that has maybe a little more loft, or something where your stitches are going to sink maybe deeper in, like leather or like terry cloth, like on towels, you always want to use a wash away topper. It's just going to help your stitches rest on top of the design instead of sinking too far in. So we are going to place that right here in the middle as well. And again, because we don't want that to move, we're going to place a little bit of our paper tape on that. Okay, the next step is to take it back to our machine and stitch what we call a tack down line for the outline of the pig as well. Okay, now normally after we do a tack down like that, we would remove the project from the machine and we would cut around it. As you see outlined in direction step 6, in the yellow highlighted area, it says do not trim leather at this time. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We're not going to trim it till a little bit later. We want to make sure that we can do all the inside stitching, which can get pretty dense, first before we trim. All right, in this case. So we're going to go ahead and stitch the outline for the pig. It's what we would call the tack down line. And I'm going to keep my thread black. I don't want to see that, that thread exactly. I just want it to keep it black and match the background. And then I'm going to go right into stitching that star on the pig, which will be with my yellow thread. All right, so let's go ahead and go to that point. Again, when you're placing this on your machine, you want to make sure that you're very careful with it and that you're not keeping any fabric underneath it. It all needs to lay flat. So just make sure those straps are not caught underneath when you go to do this. All right, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and go to our hoop cam here and stitch our tack down line for the pig. Now, before we go to stitching that star, I want to make one thing really clear. The directions that you are given in your event is following the directions of doing the pig that has the rocket on it, okay? But there's another design also on your USB that would actually have the American flag on it. So, you know, make a decision on which one you're going to use, either the rocket or the American flag, but know that the directions that you're seeing in here are all part of the one with the rocket. All right, so let's go ahead and stitch that first star design, and then we'll stitch the second star design following that. Okay, I'm going to keep my yellow thread in and stitch the second little star design. Okay, as you see in direction step 9, we're going to change our thread color to either like a cream or a white, and then stitch out the rocket details. Alright, so now that we've stitched the rocket stick and explosion details in that cream color, we're going to now stitch out the star fill and the stripe as outlined in step 10 and 11. So I've changed my color to blue, and we'll go to that point. It's now time to change your thread to red so that you can stitch out the rest of the rocket stripe detail. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, at this point we are ready for our last color switch over, and that is going to be kind of like a white, creamy white color. So as you see in instruction step 13, it shows that we've got the white color stitch out here, but I want you to notice something else that happens with each of these new steps, these new sections of the pig. We are doing what we call a color stop. So from machine step 10 to machine step 11 would be a color stop. But do you notice how we kept the color the same on both? That's so that you can make that decision. We are keeping white, let's go up here, the whole time. The rest of the time it's remaining white. But certainly because it's a color stop and it's a new section of this pig, you could choose any color you wish to put in that place, all right? But again, we're just going to do one last color as outlined in the instructions and keep it to white the whole time. So let's go ahead and go through, we'll start with instruction step 13 and go all the way up to the end of the stitch out, which is direction step 21. Okay. Woo, we are done. Oh my gosh. Well, with the stitching part at least, right? Okay, so now what are we going to do? Well, we're going to tear away this excess topping. Here you can see even my tape got in there, but not a problem because with the Kimberbell paper tape, it tears away, pulls away very easily from those stitches. And now we'll just tear away this extra topping as well. So we have removed all of that extra topping away from the outside edge. Now before you get too worried about how in the world am I going to take out all of this topping, don't worry, we'll get there here in just a minute. And that's a lot of small areas to pick out. That's the beauty of water-soluble topping, is because here in just a minute we're going to wash that away with just some water, and we don't have to pull and pick at it. All right, so the next thing we want to do is trim any jump stitches that you see. Depending on your machine, some machines will actually trim the jump stitches as you go, and then some do not. So if you need to trim any of those, you'll want to do that. And then we also want to trim around the outside edge of the pig outline itself. All right, so I'm going to show you a couple of scissors that I really like from our deluxe scissor and tool set that I like for trimming up leather or trimming up any applique pieces. My go-to first is the duckbill scissors. I love this duckbill. I always place it in towards the center of my applique. I feel like I get a much cleaner, closer cut by doing it that way. All right, so I'm going to start over here, and just with my left hand, I'm going to just hold this excess leather kind of taut, and then just allow my duckbill scissors to go around that. See how smooth and easy that glides around there? All right, so we will continue this process. As you get into these smaller areas, You can still continue to just clip little bits at a time here, but I actually like to change my scissors over in kind of more tighter areas to our flexi snip. So that's a different type of scissor. And as you can see here, it's got a curved bottom to it, okay? So this curve just floats right along there, and because it's a flexi snip, it's just really easy to cut, and it reduces hand fatigue. It's really nice. It's got this spring in it that makes it simple. So as I get into these smaller areas, I'm going to just switch over to my flexi snips. All right, there we go. So it's all trimmed around it. Again, we still have this extra water-soluble topping in there, but it's going to dissolve here in just a minute. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and pop this out of my hoop. Okay. And remember, this is a sticky back wash away that we used. So I'm going to turn it over and just trim around. I use my duckbill scissors again. I'm just going to trim around any of the extra stuff before I dissolve the rest of the remaining stabilizer. One thing I want you to notice is as I get over here to where these crosshairs are, you're going to want to like clip those a little bit, just so that it's easier to remove your stabilizer from that area. So we just clipped a few spots, and now we can continue to cut around. Okay, so now I've cut away most of that extra stabilizer. So now I can dissolve the remaining stabilizer that's still left there, as well as the remaining topping, just in some cool water. So what I like to do is actually, take a bowl of cool water and just soak it. You could certainly just run it under your faucet for about 20 seconds or so, but also soaking it for about that long works just as well. And then you're just going to allow this to dry, and then iron it after that. Of course, you're going to undo your neck strap, and then you are ready to wear your apron or to gift your apron to somebody. The other thing I would just make sure and remember is that whenever you're pressing something like this, and in this case leather, you're pressing leather, you always want to use a pressing cloth on top of that leather. You don't want to take the chance of that leather burning. So make sure and put just a pressing cloth, another piece of fabric over the top, press it, and then, of course, press the remaining of your apron. That's all there is to it. Now, in your instructions, if you go to the last page, you will then see a color chart for doing the flag barbecue apron. So again, we did the rocket. This one's for the flag. Very similar steps as I just showed you, just a few little tweaks in the design because of the flag being there. All right, so that's all there is to it. Let's go ahead and get started on your barbecue oven mitt here as we do our next project.